Let's rock.
One take, one take, one take, one take.
Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. Let me repeat that: very good spirits wherever you are in the world. Today, let us continue, if it's okay with you, with our discussions of the episodes of Twin Peaks. We are now finding ourselves season 1, episode 2. So, as with everything in these discussions with Twin Peaks, I am not an expert. I don't hold myself out to be an expert in the lore and details of Twin Peaks, so I'm going to get a number of things wrong, I know. My plan is to not talk about anything specific beyond episode 2 of season 1. So everything up to here, the pilot, episode 1, and now this episode 2, is fair game. But everything beyond that, I'm not going to speak about it directly. I might make some vague comments here and there, but the point is just to keep the momentum and focus on everything up to and including this current episode that we're discussing. And today, that is episode 2 of season 1. And oh gosh, what an episode we have here. This is a real treat. They've all been real treats, of course, but my goodness, where to begin with this? I suppose we could begin at the beginning. We have this episode. It's Mark Frost, David Lynch, directed by David Lynch. And we have at the opening, the House of Horn. And we have the indications of things something's rotten in the state of Horn, in a manner of speaking. And that is further exemplified by the introduction of Jerry Horn. So Ben and Jerry. So this is going to form another combo or duo or pair or pairing that we might see a lot of over the course of Twin Peaks. So Ben and Jerry. I think there are echoes here, Ben and Jerry, and what that means in the context of, say, American society and culture and ice cream culture, etc. But Ben and Jerry, this is a combination, a unit, and they are very close, as you can tell with their mutual affinity for this baguette type of sandwich. I love the detail of not only do they like the sandwich and they eat it with great relish and it's a great flavor apparently, but but each of them, they love the sandwich and bread so much that they touch their nose to it and sniff it, and they're talking through their eating, etc. And the like. And so there's, of course, the information about what happened to the Norwegians and how this is a big shock to the Horn family, but also the death of Laura Palmer. The murder of Laura Palmer, and so this then leads us to one of the very maybe seemingly more and more important and seemingly more and more relevant places of geography around Twin Peaks on the other side of the border, of course. But this is One-Eyed Jack with one eye, and this is a gambling establishment. Also, it seems like connected with the perfume counter, as mentioned very briefly between the brothers. We also have what seems to be an establishment for prostitution. And so this is where the brothers go, and we have the introduction of not only some of the women who seem to be working at this establishment, but also we have Blackie. And there is this rapport in particular between Ben Horn and Blackie. So these might be characters just to keep an eye out for as we proceed on throughout this series. But in any event, here we have, yes, another pairing, Ben and Jerry. There are a number of pairings that we can talk about. There's one other key pairing that we'll talk about towards the end. We start the episode with the introduction of this pairing. We will end the episode with the introduction of yet another pairing that is quite significant, one can say. But let's start with the start. Let's start with the start, and the start brings us with Ben and Jerry. But that continues on, of course, with other aspects here. We get the continuation of Donna and James. I've mentioned it before, let me say it again. I cannot get enough of James's sweater as he's visiting the Hayward household and enjoying the pie in front of the fireplace, and everyone is there, and The parents then decide to go to bed early, and they leave the two young teenagers alone in the living room. And Doc Hayward, the ever talented Doc Hayward, asks his daughter Donna if she will be going to church tomorrow, because it's a church day tomorrow. So 9 a.m. right. So it's kind of curious that he would ask her rather than say, "Oh, we're going to assume that everyone is going to go to church," as though I'm not sure. Does she have any other plans? What is she going to do? Anything? No. So anyway, in any event, that leaves the two of them alone, Donna and James, and they reconfirm their feelings for each other, and James in particular tries to suggest and assert that they haven't done anything wrong. They're not doing anything wrong because they are really obeying their feelings, and they were always falling in love. Regardless of how Laura Palmer fit into their respective relationships. So again, it's this idea of the absence and non-absence of Laura Palmer. The absence and presence of Laura Palmer is the hole in the donut. In fact, it's the existence and non-existence that forms the whole type of unit and forms the whole basis for existence of the Donna-James relationship. So in that way, Laura is the one, is very, very significant in many aspects, such as the Donna-James relationship. And we see a type of confirmation or reconfirmation of that relationship mutually here, and they're kind of making out as well. I don't know about you, but if I were James, I would feel very uncomfortable to make out with my girlfriend in my girlfriend's house living room just soon after my girlfriend's parents have left. And so I'd feel very awkward about that. But oh well. James is cool. So in any event, we have that situation and that plot thread going forward. So we'll of course pay attention, because it seems like the Donna James dynamic, the Haywards and the Hurleys, etc. This is going to play a pretty significant part in the ongoings of the Twin Peaks saga going forward. So, but any event, yes, Donna and James, they are now unified and united in a very strong and intimate way. But we also learn about a number of things. I mean, let's jump a little bit ahead here. I mean, mentioned the Horns, I mentioned the Haywards. There's also this very curious scene in the Double R a little bit later, after church, because the parents mentioned that they saw Audrey Horne at church. And Audrey Horne is now stepping into the diner alone. She sits at the counter, and then Donna, much to her, good for her, she went up, she took the initiative to go up to Audrey and sit next to her, and they have a little heart-to-heart. Now, this is very interesting, because we understand that, we get the sense that, right, Donna and Audrey aren't necessarily the best of friends. And Donna even says that she always assumed that Audrey never liked Laura, and yet she was seen going to church. And indeed, Audrey says she went to church for Laura, because, of course, still at this time, Laura is still recently passed away, and her memory is very much in the hearts and minds of everyone here, including Audrey Horne, as we find out, because as Audrey Horne says, there might have been things where she didn't like Laura, but she really admired and respected the way that Laura tried to help her brother, Johnny, Johnny Horne. And so that in that way, maybe she really did love Laura in that way. But at the same time, she does suggest that maybe there is a hint of some kind of illicit relationship that might have occurred between Laura and Ben Horne. But we're not sure yet as to those details. We might or might not hear about that as we go forward. But let's just remember that for now. But in any event, I think this is also a very tender moment regarding Audrey for a number of reasons. So first off, regarding her brother, this means that she has this love and devotion for her brother in this way, and the fact that through her brother she's able to show a kind of love and respect for the memory of Laura Palmer, I think it's very admirable, very, very admirable indeed. Not to say that I dislike Audrey Horne as a character. I think she's, and I know many other people in the world admire Audrey Horne in many respects, and she's one of the most memorable characters in all of Twin Peaks. And already she's made her mark in the pilot and then these first few episodes in season one. But here we have this kind of tenderness that's shown. She seemed to be somewhat of a rebel up to now, especially when we remember that scene in the prior episode about her and her father's, "I lost you years ago," or something to that effect. And so now we get a sense of some kind of love and devotion towards some parts of her family, although there is still that sense of antagonism towards her father. And so maybe we will see that develop further. And also, this is a very memorable Audrey Horne moment because we get more of the Audrey dance. We saw a little bit of it in the prior episode, but here we have it in full display in front of the jukebox. And we have in the double R, and people are looking, and you have the look on Donna's face, like, "Oh, what's going on here?" But yes, this is, if you're talking about iconic classic moments of Twin Peaks, it's right here. This is one of them. Wow. Talk about electricity, right? Electricity. It is lightning in that room. And Audrey Horne's the cause of it. My goodness. And so this is something to remember. And indeed, it is something that many people, myself included, remember to this very day. So that is something to keep in mind there. Also, going forward with the other characters. Let's see, where can we go? We can, of course, go to, and let's go then to Big Ed and Nadine and Norma. Of course, we have Nadine and Ed and the story of the drapes and the drape runners. And of course, we have Ed with the oil and the incident inside the house, which causes Nadine to go ballistic, so much so that, the metal, she's got to bend the metal. So strong, super strong Nadine with this superhuman strength. But also she has these grand outbursts of anger and frustration, but also grand outbursts of excitement and jubilation, as we will see later, because of this incident of inside the living room and the oil, that a little bit of oil is seen to be hitting one of the drape runners. Nadine has discovered the secret process for silent drape runners, runners which run drapes without creating any noise. And it's because the friction is diminished due to the application of the oil. At least that's the theory, I think, which is due to the accident of Ed splashing the little bit of oil onto that process there. So Nadine, in a cry of outburst, says, "We're going to be rich." And so she shows her happiness, which is an amazing thing because Ed seems to be shocked anytime Nadine shows or says anything in terms of an outburst. Ed seems to be shocked whenever Nadine is exploding in a fit of rage, or Ed seems to be shocked whenever Nadine is exploding in a fit of happiness and satisfaction, as we see in this latter part of the episode, which is very funny. It's also very touching. It's also quite sad and poignant at the same time, especially when we recall the feelings that Ed and Norma have. And you'll recall a little bit earlier when Ed walks into the Double R, the diner. He walks in there and he walks into the door. He has his hand raised like that, and he kind of waves, and he goes to the counter, the side counter, sits down, and he talks about how in the earlier part of the day with the oil incident and Nadine got mad at him. This is a very poignant scene because it shows Norma and Ed together. Another Norma and Ed scene, one of the great couples in a series that has a number of great couples, of course. Let's keep an eye out for this as well, because we might see something a little bit similar like this. Maybe there might be a scene later involving Ed walking into the diner in almost the exact same position with his hand raised, and maybe he sits down in almost the exact same position, that counter, but the circumstances might be extremely different. But in any event, there might be an echo of this later and down the road. But for now, that echo is resonating right here and now in this episode too. Another example of that ongoing triangle, right? Nadine, Norma, and Ed. And then the idea too, just let's see, speaking of the Double R, so we also have Shelley, who's also working at the Double R, the diner. But we have her story, which is, of course, from the last episode, we realized that she was the victim of domestic violence. And we see the terrible, terrible end result of that. There seems to be a bruise on the side of her face or her neck, which is suggestive of the fact that Leo hit her. He put a bar of soap in a long sock or something, and just the implication is very, very scary, incredibly scary, and terrible, terrible implication. It's yet another example of how villainous Leo Johnson is becoming in the world of Twin Peaks. So let's keep an eye out on that. And we also know how villainous he is because we also have the dynamic between Bobby and Mike, specifically Bobby on the one hand and Leo Johnson on the other, when they meet in the darkness with the drug deal and the exchange of money, but they don't have the money because the money that they owe Leo is in the safety deposit box from Lauren. Remember from the pilot episode we had Sheriff Truman and Dale Cooper examining the safety deposit box with that large deer's head in the middle of the table there. It fell down, right? And they're looking through the safety deposit box. They see a stack of money. They also see a copy of the magazine Flesh World. And so this might also have something to do with some of the hints and clues about what, for lack of a better phrase, the underworld of Twin Peaks. But now let's go back to Leo Johnson and Mike and Bobby, but specifically Leo Johnson and Bobby here, because we definitely see that Bobby is very intimidated by Leo. So Leo is the sort of alpha male of the villains of Twin Peaks so far. And he is very scary, and that darkness and the light shining on his face, I think, makes it even scarier. But we also know that Leo Johnson suspects that Shelley, his wife, is cheating on him. And he makes this known to Mike and Bobby, although he doesn't necessarily say if he knows who it is. And Bobby is trying to be quite sly and trying to figure out if he indeed knows or has a guess or clue as to maybe it's him or not. But and that leads, of course, to the scene between Bobby and Shelley. And so when Bobby comes in and sees Shelley, Shelley, of course, doesn't want to see him, wants to turn away, but he is very insistent, very stubborn, and goes in, and then he discovers that she has indeed been hit very violently. And she says, he'll kill you, he'll kill us both. And he says, I don't care, and they embrace. And this is really great for a number of reasons. This scene is great. I mean, the situation is very terrible and tragic and sad and very scary, of course. But the dynamic, the drama of the scene in the context of Twin Peaks is really great for a number of reasons. First of all, Bobby as a character, as we know, he's slouching, he's always angry at the world, he's very much against authority figures. But when it comes to the people that he loves, and when it comes to Shelley, his posture is straightened, he is forthright. He might be intimidated when he's trying to be he's confronted by Leo in the darkness, of course, but when he's with Shelley, for better or for worse, right, he really is devoted to Shelley, and you can tell this. And he says, I'm going to protect you. And he will say, if this happens again, I'm going to kill Leo. And of course, that show of violence is itself very disturbing. But the point is that he wants to defend Shelley, and you can tell that it's sincere, it's earnest. And so this is another key couple in the world of Twin Peaks, Bobby and Shelley, and thus a triangle. Another triangle, Bobby, Shelley, and Leo. And we saw it already from the start, and we see it now. We might see it again going forward in more episodes of Twin Peaks. So that's one of the reasons why I think the drama is quite excellent here. Another thing too, just as a little aside, I suppose, I know it's not the exact same dialogue and stuff, and I know it's very different from what we might see later in a film like, say, Mulholland Drive. But let me just point your attention to the fact that for those who know Mulholland Drive, you know that there's a very famous scene in that film involving a character in Hollywood and an audition scene. And the audition scene is something like, I hate you, I hate us both. And I always, when I see this scene in Twin Peaks, I always wonder, wow, yes, that's very much, it has echoes of something that we will see in that audition scene in Mulholland Drive. It's almost like they're auditioning, or something like that. But in any event, I always get a kick out of that. Also, Invitation to Love. There's this Invitation to Love in the blue. It's very much like a blue velvety type of a title sequence of Invitation to Love. So the idea of the soap opera and the parallels and sort of the homage and the slight slight homage or slight maybe satire towards a soap opera, and how that is an echo of the type of soap opera types of drama elements that we definitely see in Twin Peaks, and all of its glory. It's totally celebrated, totally unhidden, totally in view for everyone to enjoy, because that's part of the fun of Twin Peaks too, is the soap opera elements, and we get that in large doses, do we not? And it's wonderful for that. So and we'll keep an eye out on this as well. A lot of things happening already, right? So there are those elements. There's also, yes, of course, we have to mention other hidden agendas. So let's return to Pete Martell, Catherine Martell, and Josie Packard. And of course, there is great tension between Pete and Catherine already. The scene with polishing the footwear on the bed, and we realize later the implication that they sleep separately, Pete and Catherine. And Catherine is really exploding against Pete. Pete mentions, of course, that earlier today talks about there's a smell of fish, and there's talking about what happened with the fish in the percolator. And hidden away from Catherine's view, we have something to do with a key to a safe, about ledgers. And so Pete seems to be in cahoots trying to help Josie with something. So while we understand from the prior episodes that there seems to be this plot afoot between Catherine and Ben Horne to try to get at the mill. And we understand here too that there is a similar, albeit opposite, type of plot of sorts between Josie and Pete, who seem to be in cahoots, and Pete has some kind of maybe emotional connection or attraction maybe towards Josie. So that element is also in play. So let's keep an eye out for that as well. How the Pete, Catherine, Josie, and Ben Horne, and also Josie, and by extension Sheriff Truman, how that will play itself out going forward. Speaking of Sheriff Truman, of course, we also have the great dynamic with Dale Cooper and Sheriff Truman and the investigation. So we have the introduction of Jack with one eye, and we have the Hawk reporting to Cooper about the one-armed man that he saw in the hospital, and also we have this idea of measuring the specified distance between himself and the glass bottle, and mentioning Tibet and the dream. And the dream, which seems to have established some kind of intuition connection between the dream world and the state of investigation and the investigative powers of Dale Cooper. And we see it in this classic scene in the outdoors. Who is the letter J? Nervous about meeting J, according to Laura Palmer's diary. And so we have a list of all the people who have a letter J associated with their name, and also descriptions from Sheriff Truman about what they are. So it's a nice review of the cast of characters of Twin Peaks who have a letter J. And there's so many J's in Twin Peaks. It's quite astonishing, so it's really wonderful in that way. And so and then the idea is, will the rock hit the glass bottle or not? And Lucy will keep track. We have Andy standing by next to the bottle. We have Hawk wearing the kitchen mittens and holding the bucket full of stones. And here we go. And also, I forget to, before that, there's the warm-up from Lucy, the coffee, which is really great. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, let's have a nice cup of coffee. Yes, wonderful. One tugs at the heartstrings, does it not, for a coffee lover who watches Twin Peaks. Scenes like this really does. Warms the heart indeed, just like a warm cup of coffee. Not just warm, it's hot, right? And what does Special Agent Dale Cooper do when he drinks it? He drinks it, spits it out. But it's great. It is right. Another cup of fine coffee, damn fine coffee. Excuse my language, but damn fine coffee. And he spits it out, and he says, "Hot," right? I love this scene because it's showing that yes, there's this type of almost antithetical expression of happiness and optimism. So it's almost like this expressing, spitting out something is a means by which he is expressing how much he loves the thing. So that is a very, I think, antithetical thing, which is great. It's one of these lovely things about the Lynch universe and how Lynch expresses certain types of emotions. It comes to the fore very much so when Albert comes into the scene, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I love this coffee moment from Dale on the one hand. Also, I don't want to get into too many details, but maybe we might see something later down the line about a character drinking coffee and it's hot. Drinks it, it's hot, right? But anyway, let's keep that in mind. But in any event, we have this incredible scene involving the investigation and who might be involved. And we have Dr. Jacoby, right? When his name is mentioned and he's described, the rock hit the bottle. It didn't break the bottle, but hit the bottle. So Dr. Jacoby may be significant. Remember him from the very end of the prior episode, of course, with the coconut and the half heart locket. And yes, listening to the tape of Laura Palmer. So there might be some significance there. Also, the stone hits and breaks the bottle at which name? Yes, the name of Leo Johnson. So Leo Johnson seems to be, yes, more significantly tied to perhaps the events surrounding the death and murder of Laura Palmer than meets the eye. So let's also keep that in mind as we go forward. And I mentioned to Albert. Albert's coming in, and so we have another classic iconic character from the universe of the FBI here, and another associate of Dale Cooper, that being Albert. Of course, Albert too has something. He has this great precision. He's one of the top people in his field, although he's lacking in certain social niceties, according to Dale Cooper. But lacking in social niceties, I'm not sure if that does it justice. When we see him. He is very to the point, very acerbic, to say the least. Already he makes quite an impression on the crowd of Twin Peaks. Not a very good impression. And of course, Harry Truman makes it known how much he dislikes Albert's tone and attitude and the way he's speaking in his very, very demeaning tone. But what is so curious here is Dale Cooper is always giving the thumbs up. Dale Cooper is smiling. It's almost as though, again, to borrow something that we were speaking about earlier about how seemingly outward shows of negativity are also themselves sincere attempts at making connections in the world of David Lynch and Mark Frost and Twin Peaks. Case in point, here we have like Bobby, right? Earlier on I mentioned how Bobby, he seems to be so angry at the world, so much so that it's like he's smiling and he's angry at the world or something like that. Also Nadine, she has these giant epic outbursts. And even when she's happy, she's scaring Ed, So you have these reactions or looks that seem to suggest one thing, but are resulting in something completely opposite. Something maybe perhaps could be said, although we have to follow this as the show progresses. Something might be said to be going on similarly with Albert. He has these demeaning remarks that are being said, but maybe these are his way of trying to make connections. And again, we'll see if this type of interpretation holds out or if it goes in a different direction. But for the time being, Dale Cooper seems to be giving his thumbs up, even though it's very obvious that Lucy doesn't like him, that Sheriff Truman doesn't like him, etc., etc. So, but this is the introduction of Albert, and so the team is growing in terms of the investigation. So we hope it goes smooth sailing, as it were. What doesn't seem to be smooth sailing is also the Palmer household, Sarah and Leland, unfortunately. So here we have I think for the first time here, I mean, of course, we've had scenes with Leland Palmer, and we've had shows of true grief from Leland Palmer and his reaction to hearing the news, going to the morgue, etc. But this is one of the scenes where he's snapping his fingers, he's struggling. There's some kind of frustration or feeling of regret or something going on. Who knows? He's by the record player and he plays the big band jazz. There's a close-up of the record spinning with the light. And when I watch the film Inland Empire at the very start, I'm always struck by that image. It's very similar. But also this idea too of the big band jazz that's being played at a high volume, and then Leland Palmer does, to the picture of Laura. And the prom picture, right? And then he's just holding it and just spinning and crying and just another outburst with spinning and chaos. Sarah even remarks about what's going on in this house. to the point where it becomes this violent episode where he falls and breaks the glass of the picture frame, and he bleeds, and blood is all over the picture there. It's an interesting image too of the broken picture frame of Laura Palmer, and the glass, the shattered glass. We might see something again. Let's bottle this up, because we might see a very similar image later down the line in terms of a picture of Laura and glass, and how a character reacts to it and tries to engage with it, in a manner of speaking. But for the time being, we have this moment. It is frightening. It is chilling. It's very, very sad indeed, and it is yet another mode of, let's say, grief that we are seeing. Up to now, we've seen people reacting to Sarah Palmer's grief, but now this is an example of Sarah Palmer reacting to Leland Palmer's grief and how he's expressing it. And it seems very out of place. It seems very odd and very off kilter, to the point where Sarah cannot engage with it in a way that seems to be in any way emotionally productive. So let's keep an eye out for how this will continue on going forward. But that's not all, because I mentioned at the start that we have one sort of a pair or couple, that being Ben and Jerry, that is introduced. But the end of the episode, we will see another couple being introduced, to a manner of speaking. We've seen these figures before, here and there. There is the one-armed man, and then there is another figure that we saw very briefly, or Sarah saw very briefly, but now we see and also hear. And this is in the dream of Dale Cooper. So first off, we have a gentleman who's speaking with a beard, and as I say, he is talking about how he removed his arm, and he refers to himself as Mike. And he says it like it is, like it sounds, right? And he talks about, we lived among the people, right? I think you say a convenience store, right? We lived above it. So there's this idea of living in a convenience store or above a convenience store. So this may or may not be significant going forward. So let's keep an eye out for that. Also, he mentions this very famous, or not, well, I guess it's going to be famous, but he mentions this rhyme or poem of some sort, or phrase, through the darkness of future past. The magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me. Where did we see this message, this wording, fire, walk with me, before? None other than the scrap of paper that was found at the crime scene. Remember, with the mound of dirt and the half-heart locket, the little piece of paper which said, fire, walk with me. Well, here we have this figure who refers to himself as Mike. Make that same expression. Fire, walk with me. What does that mean? He says his name is Mike, and he also there's another person named Bob. Okay, so who is Bob? Who is Mike? We've heard these names before too, right? Mike and Bobby. That's interesting. But here we have another character named Mike referring to another character named Bob, and we see this different man with long, sort of gray silver hair speaking. He says, Mike, Mike. And there's another type of refrain that he mentions. I'll catch you with my death bag. You may think I've gone insane, but I promise I will kill again. And he says, I will kill again. What does that mean? What is he referring to? Has he killed someone? If so, who has he killed, or whom has he killed? We're not quite sure, but he is referred to as Bob, and there's the other gentleman referring to himself as Mike. And also he mentions the arm, the situation involving his arm, and he was touched by the devilish one, and there was a tattoo, but when he saw the face of God, he was changed, and he took the whole arm off. That's the story. And so let's see what kinds of ramifications and consequences that might have going forward, if any. There might be some, there might be none, who knows. But in any event, this is very peculiar indeed, right? But the peculiarity of Antics does not end there, does it not? Because the dream seems to continue on, the dream of Dale Cooper, because we go into this space, seemingly random space, right? This room with a type of a pattern on the floor, and red curtains, and a couch, and some other decor in the surroundings. It seems to be this kind of oddly amorphous space. And we see this figure in a red suit, kind of shivering or something. And then we see someone else sitting across there. Who is it? None other than Laura Palmer. And Dale Cooper's there, but Dale Cooper is visibly quite aged in that Hollywood makeup type of way. He looks almost like Father Merrin in the film The Exorcist, for those of you who know the film The Exorcist. So it's got that Father Merrin Exorcist look to him, and that great tie, by the way. But he's just looking, and there's this odd stuff going on, and the odd antics continue on because what are we doing here? We have Let's Rock. So we have the introduction of this and this type of backwards universe where people seem to be talking in reverse, but in that reverse way, they are speaking in a way that we can sort of make out what they're saying with the help of some subtitling, of course. So that's true with this mysterious figure, and that's also true of Laura Palmer. But when Dale Cooper speaks, he's speaking in the ordinary tone, let's put it that way. And talking about, is she Laura Palmer? I feel like I know her, but sometimes, right, my arms bend back. Or when the mysterious man says, I've got good news in this reverse speak. That gum you like is going to come back in style. So that's wonderful news, right? In terms of if his favorite gum was out of style. But in any event, these mysterious phrases, she's filled with secrets. And where we're from, the birds sing a pretty song, and there's always music in the air, and the dancing. And of course, Laura Palmer stands up and walks slowly towards Dale Cooper and whispers something in his ear. What does he whisper? I don't know. But at the moment he wakes up, Dale Cooper from the dream, and he calls. He says to Sheriff Truman, "Yes, I know who killed Laura Palmer." He's going to say no, right? Why? Because, yes, it can wait till morning. And then we have, yes, another end to a wonderful episode of Twin Peaks. So much going on. The introduction of new characters, or characters that we have seen maybe in glimpses before, but now we get some more robust solidity, or maybe not solidity, who knows, as to what they are, who they might represent. Mike, Bob, who is this mysterious figure in the dream? What is this idea about gum? What is this idea about who killed Laura Palmer? The power of dreams. Leo Johnson, Bobby, Mike, more mystery about other characters, the soap opera elements developing, this and that. All the while you have the decor and environment of Twin Peaks, the wonderful music from Angelo Badalamenti, now iconic classic. Everything is serene, calm, quiet, beautiful, and at the same time horrible, ugly, and menacing, and quite frightening indeed. But it's just another day at the office, in a manner of speaking, in the hands of Frost and Lynch, is it not? So here we have episode 2 in season 1 of Twin Peaks. Wow, right? Wow. And so much to talk about. Of course, we are talking about it in piecemeal. So I know for those of you who know the show Twin Peaks, I know there are some things that are relevant to things that we'll see later. But let us wait to talk about those when we get to those episodes. In the meantime, this episode 2 has so much richness, so much mystery, so much deep thought, and also WTF moments. A lot of them indeed. And it's brilliant because of it, and then some. So this is a quick discussion, very random, haphazard, I apologize, but it is a quick one on episode 2. All right, so let us continue on, but I look forward to seeing you at the next one. But until then, my dear friends, I very much hope you're well, and cheers.